Yeah,
got the pledge.
I
Wait,
got
just
both.
one second here, let's see if we can sequence ourselves on. We ready?
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight. We just ask your blessing over our meeting. Just be with us and give us the wisdom to make the right decisions for our constituents. We just thank you for all that you do for us, and we just ask this in Jesus' name, amen.
I'd like to call the meeting of the Jackson City Council to order. I'd like to welcome all council members and guests who are with us this evening. And we'll begin with roll call, please.
Foster.
Here.
Call.
Here.
Colby.
Here.
Peters.
Here.
Newkirk.
Here.
Biggs. Here. Bach.
Here.
Our next portion on the agenda is visitors and recognition. I don't think Mayor had any recognition to bring forward, and we do have some visitors who were with us from the previous meeting, and we welcome you. So the next part of the agenda we'll look at is the minutes from the previous meeting. That was October the 25th. Are there any objections or corrections to be made by council as those that are presented to you this evening? Hearing none, could I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Ms. Colby, is there a second? Mr. Newkirk? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion is carried. We will move into committee reports. We will start with utility. Mr. Call?
No report.
Thank you, Mr. Call. Next, on budget and finance, Ms. Biggs?
Yes, we had a meeting November 1st, discussed quite a bit of things that we'd like to see in the budget, money appropriated for that. One of those was we looked at creek cleaning and the cat problem, again, we still want to address. It's also been asked by some of our constituents to still look at the sewage system with problem areas and where we're going with that sewage system. And Mr. Swackhammer gave a report that they have had cameras run through the sewer lines, and this is 100% of the sewer lines. It's never been done, so they know exactly where the major problems are in the city. I thought that was pretty smart of him to do, I will say. The budget will be a little higher this year because we have carryover money. We have some significant grants that are going to go in there, and so that's always a good problem that we've got a little bit more than we perhaps thought we would have. We're looking at a water sewage cash reserve fund. We're going to have to figure out how we're going to pay for that. And before we get the budget finalized, this council needs to decide, and we might have some discussion here if that would be all right, on the updates to Hillcrest Pool. If we want to, you know, it's not a moneymaker, we know that. It's for the community. But the basketball court needs done, the pool's gonna need some areas. The kiddie pool area, which has become very popular, has no shade area. There's just, the locker rooms need some work done. We must decide, this council, whether we want to support these, or if we don't, you know, in a couple of years, it's probably not gonna, it's probably gonna go downhill enough. It would cost us a lot more, or we wouldn't support it. So, before Mr. Swackhammer finishes the budget, he needs to know where council stands on this. What, is that, did I say it about the way you wanted it said?
You did well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, could I have some feedback from council on how you think you want to, what do you want to see if us to support the city pool or not?
Mr.
I
Peters?
just tell you this, the opportunity to help our children and grandchildren out is a no-brainer. We need to do it.
Mr. Peters?
Not really sure how you knew I was gonna say something, but, I agree. It's a park. Not every kid is fortunate enough to have a swimming pool in their backyard. So it is a community park in my eyes, and we need to keep it. It's not very big. It's all we've got, and I'd like to see us keep it and improve it. Before COVID, a lot of people would leave. Like if they were going places like Grove City, I'd see people on social media taking their kids and loading them up and going somewhere else. We'd rather them stay here. So if we can, I'm not saying throw the whole checkbook at it, but we can start somewhere. But I'd like to see improvements and it continue to be a community park, basically.
Mr. Swackhammer, could you address the issues or the thoughts of expansion, what's on the drawing board that they're looking at?
Sure. As Debbie mentioned, shade over around the kiddie pool is a big concern. The small children burn a lot easier than the older and the adult. There is no shade over there. Also, an expanded area that's fenced in for the younger children over there around the splash pad, the kiddie pool area. There's also been discussion around having another shelter house, perhaps where the old sand volleyball area was. It hasn't been used and stuff. That way you could open up, there's two gates. One gate goes directly into the pool area. The other goes out toward the parking lot. The thoughts was that during the pool season, you could have the gate in and out of the pool. During the off times, you could shut that gate and still have a shelter house that was viable to the public during the off hours as well. Basketball court does need a lot of updates around the fencing needs updated. There's backboards that need repaired and some other things. At some point in time, we need to look at the parking lot and the size of it as well. Those are, they all don't have to be done at once, but those are some of the things that we've talked about to make it more viable for the public. The pool itself is in good shape. It seems to, be very, I'll say, a very good pool for what we need and stuff, the way it's laid out. Just a little bit more shade and a little bit more upgrades in the bathrooms. We did some this past year. The shower bathroom combination could use a little bit more repairs and stuff in there. Big ticket items for sure would be the shelter houses, doing those couple items.
About what would you think would cover, realizing not all of it, but some of our major that we just talked about? How much in the budget would we be appropriating?
Well, at one time we had applied for a grant through TC Energy for some upgrades at the pool. And at that time, the one shelter house, we had quoted a price around $20,000. Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was around $20,000 just for the one shelter house. Again, we got code we got to work with and stuff being up there. Treated just like a commercial property, basically.
Other
So if
questions?
you were looking at the basketball court and that shelter house and some shade, would $30,000 or $40,000 do it?
The basketball court, $5,000 to $8,000 would go a long way around making the improvements and filling the cracks, getting a new surface, new paint, new backboards, new fencing, or improved the area fencing where you needed to. That would, probably take care of that. The other one over by the kiddie pool, it depends on what type of shelter house you go. If you're just looking for something where people can put lawn chairs in and stuff like that, you may not need quite as much. But still, I think you could very easily spend $40,000 up there and not touch all of those items. Like I said, this isn't a all 1 year type thing, doesn't need to be. But I think if we keep investing year after year, I think we can have a very nice facility up there. And we're still going after some grants for up there as well. I know Tracy's at least got one or two more that she's trying for that we've identified the park up there on.
It will help with the grants if we're putting money in it too, doesn't it? It's usually the way it
Anytime
is.
you're doing a match of some type, you always look more favorably, for sure.
Would council be willing, and if we this year put $30,000 in the budget for Hillcrest Pool?
What I say, 30 or 40,000 this year, maybe 40.
Why don't we let you play with that figure when you get it back to us and see how far 30 will go and how far 40, and decide what we need when you bring it back to us?
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Ms. Biggs? Thank you very much. Police, fire, and traffic, Ms. Colby?
No report at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Colby. Service, Mr. Peters?
No report other than announcing again that we'll have a meeting next Monday, the 15th. There is no council meeting, and I think there's a meeting scheduled after, so it will be from 5:30 for an hour to 6:30. Public is welcome. I'm sure we'd have a sign-in sheet like we normally do. The topic of discussion is the cemetery. Try to get some more community input on what and how we can all get along at the cemetery.
Anything else, Mr. Peters?
That's all, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peters. I will say, deviate just a little bit, Mr. Hinch is here. He's going to speak a little bit on an ordinance and resolution, but if you have questions for the police department, I told him beforehand, council had any questions for Mr. Hinch. He said he would take them if anyone does. All right, we'll skip on then to the auditor's report. Mr. Reed?
No report.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Mr. Kirby?
I do have one thing. I was asked to look at, I guess, some comments on social media that the committee meetings were in violation of sunshine laws and public meetings. I don't believe they are. I don't think that's an issue at all. It was a properly published public meeting. The confusion seemed to be the committee meetings and participation, and I was asked to offer some suggestions. There's no rules on how they're governed. This council can certainly set a rule if they want on who participates in the meetings. If you're going to keep it as a committee meeting, certainly just the committee meetings members ought to participate. If everyone is seating up here, then the committee person probably just needs to make sure that the people that are sitting here that are not committee members don't participate. If they're sitting back there, then they're just like any other public individual that's here. So if council wants to adopt any sort of resolution, please give me some guidance, and I can do that. If you were to consider any ordinance or change, it probably could be in the rules of the council. I don't recall which ordinance it was. I think the last time it was changed was 2019, and we can do that. I heard other proposals as well that may be coming up on revamping committees, and that certainly can address it as well. But I don't think you've run afoul of anything. I don't think you've done an improper meeting or anything like that, but apparently there's some confusion.
Mr. Kirby? Any questions for Mr. Kirby? Ms. Biggs?
This isn't a question, but I'm going to say it, and I don't even know if I'm in the right place to say this, but I'm going to. I have noticed, and believe me when I say this, I am just as guilty as anybody else sitting up here. Believe me, I know that. Sometimes we don't treat each other as respectfully as we should. And when we don't agree, sometimes our tones and what we say, and again, I say I do this too. Please understand that. But I do think that we need to treat each other with a little bit more respect. And it's okay if you disagree with somebody. Stephen Covey, who to me wrote every book on leadership that was any good, said, you have no growth in an organization if you all agree. There's no growth. You know, if it's always a 7-0 vote, there's no growth. We need to have discussions, lively discussions, but they need to be respectful, and I need to remind myself of that as well.
Thank you, Ms. Biggs. Anyone else? Okay. Mayor, you're up.
Well, along that line, I want to thank everyone who ran for council. Whether you won or not, I want to thank you for running, because many areas, many towns in this county even don't have their candidates at all. And we're lucky to have quite a few people running for these council seats. I know it's not a fun job most of the time, and the pay's not real big, but I want to thank everyone for running and congratulate those who won and are going to be on council for the next 2 years. You mentioned the chief was here. I think you all know, but I want to make sure everyone knows that Brett Hinch is our interim or acting chief of police now since Potter retired. So if you didn't know that, you know that now. And just last week, 2 of our senior patrolmen, police officers, were promoted to sergeants. You might have seen it on Facebook, but Jeremy Witt and Richard Kaiser Jr. were both promoted to sergeants last week. And we still have a few openings. We're still looking for a few good people to fill the remaining openings we have on getting our police department back up to where we'd like to see it. You recall, late last year, we had quite a few leave, not knowing whether, had the income tax not passed, whether we were even going to have a police department or not. So no one was replaced when they left until after that time. So we had quite a few openings, and we filled several. We got a few to go. I think 2 or 3 openings still, if I recall. So on projects, one of the projects I want to talk about tonight is last year when the government started talking about all this crazy money they're wanting to spend, I mean my administration and our supervisors basically, and our office staff started identifying projects, and I've at least reviewed most of them with you over the last year at times, or updated you. Water sewer projects mostly, as well as the paving projects. And we've told you previously about a $250,000 grant we got for one project. We had recently told you about a $500,000 project we got for one of our projects that we had identified. And the latest one that Governor DeWine announced last week, and you may have heard about it. It's not been too much in the public yet, but we were awarded just over $1 million grant last week for another one of the projects that we had identified for a need in the city. This was ARPA money, that not the ARPA money that come directly to us, but the ARPA money that the state was using through House Bill 168 for water and sewer projects. They had planned to spend $250 million around the state, with $1 million of it going to each county for water and sewer projects, and then the rest of it going wherever the other need was shown. So there were a lot of projects submitted for Jackson County, a lot of projects. In fact, we submitted several. But they chose one of our projects as the Jackson County project, awarding us a grant of just over $1 million. It's for a project for sanitary sewer service to an area, we call it the Mill Street Project. It's for an area that is not currently served by city sanitary sewer. There were related projects in that same neighborhood that we submitted. They felt that this project most closely fit their criteria for this money. So I think there's 24 households in that area that do not currently have city sewer services. This project, which is just over $1 million, the grant will cover most of it. We'll be running new sewer lines in those areas. So we're real happy about that. We're proud of that. I heard David say that our first grant was 250, the next one was $500,000, this one's $1 million, so we're shooting for $2 million on the next one. And we've got a lot of other projects that we're trying to fund and but I want to give my office staff kudos, starting with David and Tracy and our supervisors even in water and sewer that helped. Part of getting these grants is being ready. So, you know, the fact that we identified them and had early preliminary engineering work done on them. So because when you fill out an application, you gotta have an engineer's estimate of what you think it's gonna cost, or they're not gonna consider you. You gotta have detailed description of what you wanna do and why. And so all that prep work is why we're getting these. And I'm real proud of them. And that's another $1 million of work we can do in this city that doesn't have to be paid in taxes or utility rates, because that's where all the money comes from, either taxes or utility rates. This won't have to come from either of them. I guess maybe it comes from our state taxes or our federal taxes, but we want all that back we can get. So that's great news. I want to pass that along to you. Also, I want to talk about another good thing that's been happening in our office, and Tanya Hatton has been highly involved in this, as well as Mr. Swackhammer, and was what's called Tech Cred. The state has a Tech Cred program that where they refund for training or educational, type things. And Bryn Stepp, who is the rep for Lieutenant Governor of Ohio, brought this to Mr. Swackhammer about a year ago, that, maybe we could get, there's a lot of people in the city that we train, and that we could maybe get some money back for that. And so Tanya and David and our electric supervisor Waltz went to work on that, and we are going to get Tech Cred money back for training that we do for in our electric department. And we're working on getting, for this year, it'll be about $6,000 worth of money that we'll get reimbursed, where we have put tree trimmers through lineman training. Our tree trimmers, all of our tree trimmers, we put through a basic lineman training program, so that they're safe trimming trees around lines, power lines. And so we're going to get reimbursed for that, and we're working on getting reimbursement on other training that we provide, such as licenses that are required at the water plant or the sewer plant. So there again, every dime we can get from somewhere else means it don't have to come from us. And we'll keep working on that. So kudos to those people for getting that. That's a new thing, new money coming back to us. I do want to announce also that our holiday light up that we started last year, which is fireworks for Christmas, is going to happen again this year on the first Saturday in December again, December 4th. We will have the traditional Christmas parade. We'll have the Jackson Band back. We'll be doing it in the evening again, I think about 7 o'clock. Then the fire department is helping fund and support that. They have the gear grinders helping with the parade. That'll be followed by lighting of the trees in the park, which is being coordinated by Cultivating Our Future. Then we'll have the fireworks right after that. So big holiday celebration for Christmas in Jackson again this year. So put that on your calendars, everyone. And finally, I want to, you'll see at the end of the agenda, I'm going to ask council to consider an executive session at the end. I'd like everyone at the table to stay for it. I don't expect there to be any business following it, but we want a chance to update council about discipline situation with a public employee, and update the council about contract negotiations for both the Teamsters contract and the OPSI contract. And that's all I have.
Questions, Ms. Biggs?
No questions, but the mayor was so good to give all his staff and Mr. Swackhammer, everybody kudos. But I think council would like to give the mayor kudos because you are the ultimate leader of this, your staff and Mr. Swackhammer and stuff. So you deserve some of the praise too.
Well, thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Swackhammer.
I don't know how I follow all of that. There's a few items that I want to talk about once we get into the resolutions and ordinances. I'll just wait till that time if that's all right.
That's fine.
If there's any questions that the council has for me, I'll be glad to entertain them.
Questions for Mr. Swackhammer? Anything?
Quick question. In the first ward, at Main Street, Huron Street, I noticed they were cleaning out some of the ditches along, I don't know if that's the Comfort Inn, whatever it's called nowadays. Are they gonna continue under that bridge, or is it just gonna stop there?
I think they have reached as far as they can reach with that mini hoe. That is not city property, but we've always, my understanding in the past, helped them out with that. But with the equipment we have, which is, you know, the best that you can get right now with the mini hoe and stuff, it's going to take some physical labor involved there.
Well, just one other question, because right there on the bridge between People's Bank and McDonald's, it's just sediment has just, I mean, you can't really even, you couldn't walk under that bridge. I know I brought it up like 5 times already, but I'll bring it up a 6th time. In the summertime, water stands there, mosquitoes are ridiculous. Is there any way that we could look at removing all that earth that's there? I mean, the grass grows all the way across. You could literally probably walk beside the bridge and cross the little creek because it's like 2 feet wide now, so.
Are you talking between McDonald's and the bank?
Yeah. So
On
if
that
you're
side
s-
of, that side of the street?
Yeah, if you're sitting in the pickup line, look down, you'll see it. There's a family
Take
of
a look at it.
raccoons there too, so be careful. But with the backup, and we discussed that in the committee meeting with flooding and whatnot, I would let the water flow when it does rain instead of backing up on Huron Street. So, thank you.
Anybody else have anything from Mr. Swackhammer?
I
Yes,
do
sir.
have one.
Yes, sir.
I think as we had mentioned, the last council meeting around leaf pickup, and the mayor emphasized it afterwards even, I'm seeing a lot of leaves being raked into the street, into the gutters, and not remaining up on the curb and out of the gutters. We've been dry the last few days. They're calling for rain coming up here soon. All you're doing is go fill up your storm drains, and you're going to start causing backup problems. So we need to ask people to get the leaves out of these streets and back up on the curb area until the city gets around to pick up in their area.
Could we see, I know Mr. Lewis is stretched thin. I know that he does a wonderful job. But I was going down South Street and I know I saw, and I thought, oh boy, that storm drain, and when I rode by. Is there any way we could write letters when we see a house that's done that to say you need to get these back up on your property?
By the time we'd write the letter, mail it out, they would get it, the city would probably be around to pick it up.
Okay, well,
I mean, yes, it can be done for sure, but we just need to have people keeping the leaves back on their property at the curb versus raking them out into the street. Or I saw one gentleman the other day as I was watching the Pee Wee football game with a leaf blower out there, and they were all ending up where they didn't belong.
Is there any way we could type something little on our utility bill saying, don't do that?
I just figure our council members would reach out to their wards.
Yeah.
I'd walk a lot, I would.
All right, anything else from Mr. Swackhammer?
I thought you were gonna ask us to pick up the leaves.
No, I'm not doing that, I do my own.
Good idea, right?
I like that. Can we get a second?
Hearing nothing else from Mr. Swackhammer, we will move on to the ordinance and the resolutions. We will begin with ordinance 6221. This is second reading. Ms. Coon.
An ordinance transferring appropriations from the water, sewer, garbage, electric, and fire tax levy funds to the general community improvement and electric funds for reimbursements in accordance with the maximum cost allocation.
Discussion.
Yeah, Mr. President, I would let the auditor know that I do like honey ham.
This, Mr. Swackhammer.
Right, moving right along, I'll help you out there. This one here, it would help me if we could move forward with getting that passed tonight and completing the budget work. I know it's only second reading. If council would consider that, I would appreciate it.
Should have done it last time. I've got a question for Mr. Reed when we get around to it.
Mr. Call, go right ahead.
Oh, Mr. Reed, is this appropriation, it says for 2020, I'm still confused about that. What,
Mr. Call, before we did this, we changed it to 2021 in pre-read. So it is for 2021.
okay, I remember that. I still have a question.
Go ahead.
Is this a normal, I know what the Maticus or whatever thing it is that we're working with. Have we been doing this every year?
For 20-some years.
Is it normally this much money?
It has been since the last study. Once they do a study, it stays the same until they do another study.
Okay.
We will be doing a new study next year. I would say as far as the numbers on this, we have 2 new people in administration, so we're getting back to the numbers that we had prior. So, yes, and
Okay.
we don't have the ability, I don't have the ability to pick and choose the numbers. Something Mr. Peters had mentioned from last year was on the fire department, and that was in that discussion, and I agree with Mr. Peters on that end of it. They got money for the fire contracts and things, and administration, that goes into the general fund. The charge for the $25,000 to the fire department, and that was the discussion last year, was for administration of the fire department, their bills and everything else. So what this is, this pays partial to the police department for patrolling. They go and look at all the plants, the substations, the lift stations. So some of this money is available to them. This money would pay our office for the invoices that we do and the bookkeeping that we do for all the different funds. This money also pays administration salaries, like the mayors and the service directors. So that's the way this money gets back to the general. It is actually the
It's paid
administrative
out
arm of all the funds.
It's paid out of the general and then reimbursed back based
It's
on-
reimbursed out of the utilities to the general.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the city utility office is not part of this, or is it?
City utility office is direct billed, so it's separated out amongst the funds themselves just to begin with.
Okay, all right.
So it is not figured in this, no. And there is a copy of this if anybody would like it. You're welcome to it. But next year it would be redone. We've changed, we were redoing it this year, and we've asked for that to be on hold because of the switch around. It wouldn't do no good to spend $15,000 to $20,000 to redo it and then have to turn around and redo it again next year.
Okay, now, the general fund here, 956,000, that money's already in the bank, isn't it? This is just a paper transfer?
Yes, well, this is what the budget, your budget's based on estimated revenue. And part of your estimated revenue for the budget for this year is the money that comes from the Maximus study. So in other words, the budget you passed counts on having this money put into it.
So, at this point in time, we've spent X number of dollars out of the general fund, but we have not exceeded it by this amount of money.
No, you can't exceed it, so no. Well,
Okay.
you're spending it down. You have a reserve in the general, I shouldn't say reserve, there's money not appropriated in the general fund. If we did not meet, at the end of the year, what the office always does is your appropriations, they reduce it to the amount that you spend. And that reduces the monies to zero, and then you have your carryover for the next year. And that's what we're trying to get accomplished right now.
Okay, follow up on that for just a second. We're talking about developing a cash reserve for the water and sewer fund. Approximately 300,000 apiece or something like that, if I'm quoting Mr. Schwackhammer, right? How does that money, if we do set this reserve up, as Mr. Peters suggested, almost off the cuff, and now we're into doing it, is that going to raise our water and sewer rates, or is there some other magic way that we can do this without increasing rates?
Normally, what you have to do, and as far as with a cash reserve, and we had the money, and one of the reasons they've never done a cash reserve is we didn't have the money. We had the money in the electric, so that was an easy one to set up. But the state actually didn't like us setting it up all at once. They want a funding mechanism so that you're putting so much in a year and building it to a set amount, meaning it's based upon your wages, it's based upon projected expenditures, so that if you have your reserve fund is not just for general projects. Your reserve fund is for catastrophic occurrences. So if you had a substation go down, then you would be able to replace $1 million transformer. So that's what a cash reserve is for. Projects are supposed to be funded down the road, like we're putting away 93 project. We've got 228 money. We know we get in about $220,000 a year. So every year, we know down the road that we can put so much towards that. And Mr. Swackhammer has done a good job of that the last couple of years. He knows they looked at it and they broke it up into this is what we need for 93, this is what we need for this project. So it's listed out in the line items, kind of held to the side. So you can look at it and it looks like there's $800,000 here. No, technically there is, but it is for this, 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 and this. And that's what we need is our match. So that's kind of the way that's laid out. Your cash reserves, I haven't had the time really to get into the cash reserve. They've made some proposals. I need to get with the state, and you have to be able to come up with the extra money to put in it, yes. But it can be done over time, and there's a cap on a cash reserve. So it's based, like say, on a set percentage of 3 months operation, whatever you want to say that way. So there would be a cap, but it's not something that we're going to be able to say, here's $300,000 for the water, here's $300,000 for the sewer, there's 300. They'll break that up, I believe, in a couple years. There are some of those they may be able to fund fully, but there'll be criteria to keep it at a set level, and that's another thing you can use to look at setting rates. If you're building money, then your rates are more than they need to be. If you're not getting to where you need to be on the cash reserve or can keep the money the level it needs to be, then at that point you need to increase rates.
Okay, I understand that perfectly.
If I can add on something Mr. Reed said, most of these funds we're talking about, water, sewer, and even garbage, that's the other one. We are working on, and actually I've got something over for Mr. Reed to look at. Most of these funds, special water, sewer, had money set aside under a different name, but there wasn't any criteria that went with it and stuff. So once we establish just the criteria and the amounts and stuff, some of that money that's sitting in a fund that's out there already as a line item will be moved over to that cash reserve fund, because right now it's got discretionary spend against it, but there's no criteria that this much is for operations, this much is for catastrophic events, and so forth. And that's what we want to build behind it, is the formula that gets to that number so that we maintain it, and rather than just having it in a fund that people dip into as they feel they need to, which, as Mr. Reed said, that isn't the purpose for this type of fund, to be used as a dipping fund. It's there for a purpose.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery.
I have one other question.
Go ahead, Mr. Cole.
The electric reserve fund that we're talking about is not fully funded, is it? It is fully funded, so we're not putting in any more money into that?
Unless we go over, the way the electric reserve is set up, if you sold so much electric, a percentage of sales goes in, you would have to do more volume to increase it. It will stay where it is as long as you do less. If you did more, then you could increase it, but at this point, it's just staying where it is.
Okay, all right, that's good policy, all right. I apologize for all this, but I think people need to understand some of this behind the scenes, where the money goes, where it's coming from. So, Mr. Reed, that's a very nice explanation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Is any further discussion?
I'll suspend the rules.
Motion to suspend the rules from
Second
Mr. Foster.
that.
Second by Mr. Cole. Roll call.
Foster.
Yes.
Call.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Biggs. Yes. Bach.
Any further discussion?
Mr. President, just for the record, these are old numbers. I think they're too high. But for the sake of, we passed this last year in 2020 in June, and here we are in mid-November, I will support it, but I think these numbers are going to go down, just for the record.
Any other further discussion? Ms. Kuhn?
Foster.
Yes.
Call.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Biggs. Yes. Bach.
Ordinance 6221 is duly adopted. Next, we will be looking at ordinance 6421. Ms. Kuhn?
An ordinance rezoning from business B-2 to residential R-2, the property located at 265 Pearl Street in the city of Jackson, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Could I have a motion to adopt ordinance 6421 as presented to council? Ms. Biggs, is there a second? Mr. Bob? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion is carried. Discussion. Is there any further action to be taken on ordinance 6421?
Yeah, Mr. President, I move to suspend the rules to expedite their request here rather than tie it up. I know they've got some deadlines that they're tied to and some money on the front end that they've already spent. And I've moved to suspend the rules, especially after we've dotted all the i's and crossed all the t's on this. They need to move forward with this project.
Thank you. Second by Mr. Bob. Any further discussion on this? Roll call, please.
Foster.
Yes.
Call.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk. Biggs. Yes. Bach.
Further discussion? Ms. Kuhn?
Foster.
Yes.
Call.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Biggs. Yes. Bach.
Ordinance 6421 is duly adopted. And before we move on to the next ordinance, I just want to take just a second to say thank you to those who serve on the Planning Commission and to those who served on the Zoning Board. This has been a little bit of a rocky road, and I think that the Planning Commission and the Zoning Commission did a wonderful job in this choice of property. And I was a little concerned over some of the social media that came out during this process. I thought some people were, no one here, but I think there were some folks who treated our folks badly. And I thank everyone who serves and gives of their own time and works. It's not easy, as you know, some of the things come before. And I wish you all the best, because I think you got a great piece of property. I think it'll be great for the city of Jackson, where it's going to be located. And I will say nicely, there are some people who owe some people some apologies over all this. No one here, but there was things that were said about some of the people who worked for the city. So I'll get off my soapbox. We'll go to ordinance 6521.
An ordinance repealing Resolution 62-16 that amended certain sections of the City of Jackson Volunteer Fire Department Personnel Policies and Procedures Manual and declaring an emergency.
Could I have a motion to adopt ordinance 6521 as presented to council? Okay, so there was no motion to accept. We'll move on to ordinance 6621.
I got to at least ask.
Okay. Mr. Swikammer is asking why there was no motion to accept.
My question,
Comment?
my question would be is why we're doing this?
Oh. First of all, because the policy and procedure manual of the fire,
Point of order, it can't be discussed. You have to email somebody about it.
Point of order, thank you. Move on to ordinance 6721. Or, I'm sorry, 6621? Yes, I'm sorry.
An ordinance to move appropriations for the police department from the salaries and wages fund to the equipment fund and declaring an emergency.
Can I have a motion to adopt ordinance?
So moved.
Is there a second? Ms. Biggs, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Discussion.
They're asking for an emergency. Is this a time issue?
Yes, this is time sensitive. This was an opportunity that Motorola has presented to purchase a new radio system. Ours is over a decade old. It is breaking at a rate of probably one radio for every 4 or 5 months. These radios are difficult to repair, difficult to get parts for. The system was slightly antiquated when we purchased it in 2010. This gives us a new system that, with the number of radios that we're looking to replace, 20 portable, 5 vehicle radios, and 2 base units, which will sit in our dispatch. They quoted us a price, I could take a look at this here, $117,592.52. I'll note that that is $24,200 below what would be state minimum bid purchasing. It's a promotion that Motorola is offering, but that order has to be placed by December 1st this year, or next year it goes up to the $141,000. We're not asking for any new money, obviously, just a reappropriation of some unused salary. And this is a very, very, very important, basic need for a police department to have good communication. This should carry us into another decade of good communication.
I move to suspend the rules in order to be able to continue.
You have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, since there wasn't a lot of discussion about it, I'll toot your horn here. You guys saved a lot of money. So, Chief Potter, you sliding into that role, Just so for the record and so the public knows, where this is coming from is, I'll use a layman's term. I'm sure Mr. Reed would have another fancy word to use, but you didn't spend $260,000. So that should be commended. That should be something that everybody sitting at this table should say, good job. I don't know if everybody knows that or not, so that's why I'm going to say it. That is great. There's also a need. I work in the communications field, so I understand the importance of things working when they're supposed to work. You're in a business where there's no margin for error. If you press a button and nothing happens, it's not like your cell phone and you can kind of curse at it and turn it on and turn it back off. But you may be dead in that short period of time. Super important that we commend you for what you guys have done. That's awesome. I'm happy. I'm glad that you guys did that, and people need to know that how much money that you guys didn't spend. Like, I know we hear it in the public that the city spends too much money, and you do this and you waste money. Your department saved a lot of money, and I'm glad. I'm happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to
Wow.
add this, even with this reappropriation, we still plan on returning, just by quick look estimates, probably somewhere near $100,000 of budget. Just from what I've looked at the figures, in other areas. So this isn't eating up everything that we didn't use. This is only eating up a small portion, but it's also very, very important that we have this because in 3 or 4 years, when the towers get updated, the system that we currently have will not be operable. So this is a purchase that if we continue to have a police department, and obviously the police department needs to have communications, it's going to have to be done at some point, and this saves the most money at the most optimal time for us and for the city and the residents in which we serve. So I appreciate the consideration.
Just one more thing, Mr. President. And you heard him right. They're giving $100,000 back. Like, when people sitting around this table, that stuff doesn't happen very often. So I was shocked. So when I found out, I almost fell out of my chair on that. And I know someone else who's not with us anymore who would have probably been like, "This is wrong. There's got to be," but they did. They saved the money. And you guys should be proud. Everybody sitting at this table should be proud. Administration, the people that you serve should be like, hey, these guys get it. But we need to pass this because you don't want to be behind the 8 ball with your iPhone 5 when 5G comes.
I move we suspend the rules.
Foster. Call.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Biggs.
Yes.
Bop.
Yes.
Further discussion? Ms. Coon?
Foster.
Yes.
Call.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Biggs.
Yes.
Bop.
Ordinance 6621 is duly adopted. Next, we'll move on to ordinance 6721. Ms. Coon?
An ordinance to revise the codified ordinances by adopting current replacement pages thereto and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to adopt ordinance 6721 as presented to council?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Colby? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Discussion.
Mr. President, notice these are updates, revisions, and it's just to the codified ordinances that I guess to probably keep them up with state statute. I move to suspend the rules so we can get those updated so we fall in line with state of Ohio's laws.
Mr. Newkirk, second. Roll call, please.
Foster.
Yes.
Call.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Biggs.
Yes.
Bop.
Yes.
Further discussion? Ms. Coon?
Foster.
Yes.
Call.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Biggs.
Yes.
Bop.
Ordinance 6721 is duly adopted. Next, we'll move on to Resolution 4221. Ms. Coon?
A resolution of the Legislative Authority of the City of Jackson, Ohio, authorizing the mayor of the City of Jackson to extend the tolling agreement with the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company and declaring an emergency.
Could I have a motion to adopt Resolution 4221 as presented to council? Ms. Biggs, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Peters. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Discussion, Mr. Kirby.
This is similar to last year, if not the same. The only other municipality that's potentially involved in this litigation is Oak Hill, and similar request has been made. It's a tolling agreement to allow continued discussions toward settlement without being involved in a lawsuit. So, there's not a good reason I can think of that would want to be named right now in it.
Is this time sensitive?
Yes, it is. The current agreement expires, the deadline to file is December 16th.
Comment, Mr. Cole?
Is there a specific reason to put a June 30th deadline on this rather than a year?
That was, I think, is it can always be extended again at that time, but I think the reason from Goodyear was as negotiations seemed to get more fruitful, they're hoping to move it along quickly.
Ms. Biggs?
Yes, I move we suspend rules.
We have a motion to suspend the rules. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Colby? Discussion? Ms. Coon?
Foster.
Yes.
Call.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk. Biggs.
Yes.
Bop.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Ms. Coon?
Foster.
Yes.
Call.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Biggs.
Yes.
Bop.
Yes.
Resolution 4221 is duly adopted. Next, we will look at Resolution 4321. Ms. Coon?
A resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Safety and Service to enter into an agreement for the purchase from Motorola Solutions of radios and equipment for use by the City of Jackson Police Department for a price not to exceed $117,592.52 and declaring an emergency.
Could I have a motion to adopt Resolution 4321? Mr. Peters, is there a second? Mr. Bob? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Discussion.
Mr. President.
Mr. Peters?
Oh, I see it. Just making sure that the emergency clause was there. I move that we suspend the rules so they can get these purchased by the deadline of December 1st.
Motion by Mr. Peters, is there a second? Ms. Biggs, second. Discussion. Ms. Coon?
Foster.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Biggs.
Yes.
Bop.
Yes.
Further discussion? Cindy, roll call, please.
Foster.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk.
Yes.
Biggs.
Yes.
Bop.
Yes.
Resolution 4321 is duly adopted. Next, we will look at Resolution 4421. Ms. Coon?
A resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Safety and Service to enter into an agreement for the purchase from Boyd Company of a Caterpillar Model 304-07 hydraulic excavator through the State of Ohio Purchase Contract Program for a price not to exceed $64,709.86 and declaring an emergency.
Could I have a motion to adopt Resolution 4421 as presented to council? Mr. Peters? Is there a second? Mr. Cole? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Discussion. Mr. Sweatcamp.
Yes, the funding mechanism for this purchase, as you remember last year, when we passed the budget, There was funds set aside from 6 different departments. At that time, we were looking at a very large dump truck, and I can remember John sitting over there and saying, do we really need something that big? So we actually took that to heart, and we actually bought one that was a little over $93,000, I want to say. So originally, we thought that we'd return the rest of the money back to the budget. As we was filling out this year's budget, both the street and alley department and water sewer distribution come and said, hey, we've only got one excavator. We have had projects interrupted. We've had, was planning on doing work on the curbs, gutters and stuff, and then all of a sudden we have a water line break, and now we can't do what we planned to do and stuff. It's disrupting to our plans. It's disruption to our workforce. We can go buy a new one at state bid for the $64,000 and still return money back to that fund, plus we'll save money from going into next year's budget, something that I would have budgeted for, because we've probably spent more than $64,000 in job disruptions this past year. So that's where the funding is coming from. As you'll see in there, it came from several different funding mechanisms, and it is less than what was originally budgeted of the $180,000, even with the purchase of the dump truck and this piece of equipment.
Other discussion?
Yeah, just for a layman here, we're talking about size. How big is this thing? Is this medium size, like the one they have right now?
It's a,
It's almost exactly like the one we have now,
Okay.
the mini excavator.
And one more question.
Yes.
May have already said this. When does we have to have this bid by what day?
yeah, I've got to get a contract signed fairly soon. It's right now, it's going to be January or March, depending on how soon I can.
It says the quoted price is available for 30 days.
Yep.
So we probably need to act.
Right now.
Yeah, I moved to suspend the rules so we can keep the price. that we
I'll
have.
I'll second it.
Newkirk, meeting closed. Second by Mr. Newkirk.
Oh,
Discussion? Ms. Coon?
Foster,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Colby,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Newkirk, Biggs,
Yes.
Bop.
Yes.
Further discussion? Ms. Coon?
Foster,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Colby,
Yes.
Peters,
Yes.
Newkirk, Biggs,
Yes.
Bop.
Yes.
Resolution 4421 is duly adopted. That is all of the ordinance and the resolutions that we have this evening. Referring back to your agenda, I don't know that we have any correspondence. Yes, you can go ahead.
I was just going to make the announcement that the office is closed on Thursday, Veterans Day, and that the trash pickup will be the following day.
Actually, the trash pickup is on Wednesday for Thursday's pickup.
Yeah, we're talking.
That Wednesday.
Okay, so just to be clear then, so our trash pickup, what would be Thursday, will now be Wednesday instead of Friday. It'll go forward rather than backwards as usual.
That's what I was told.
Mr. Wilson,
True.
could you please make sure that maybe Mr. McKee puts that out on his morning news and you also in the morning news?
We had it in the Saturday, but we'll do it again.
Thank you. Mr. Call,
I have a question on the Board of Control minutes.
can you hold on one second?
Sure.
Let me get to those on new business, okay?
Okay.
Let me get through old business. Is there any old business to be brought before council? Hearing none. We had no one signed in to speak this evening for the session. Now, Mr. Call, on your new business there from the Board of Control.
I just, on October 27th, the reference here to the payment of $13,000 to the auctioneer's fee. How much did we take in?
60,
65 something.
yeah, 65 something.
So these are 20% auction.
Yep, and they cover all the expenses, all the advertising,
Is that the automobiles that we were,
automobiles and a few other items, but the automobiles were by far the majority of it.
okay, thank you.
Are you ready for any other new business?
I have just an announcement under new business. The firefighters dependency board put out a release, which I emailed out, which I think is going to go to the media. But they're going to have an election on November 17th from 9 a.m. through 9 p.m. at the fire station to elect 2 of their members for a 1-year term to serve on the firefighters dependency board. And as secretary of that board, I have formally made that announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Peters. Mr. Swackhammer.
Ordinance 6216, it's it's about the fire department, although the fire policies are not part of any of the ordinances of the city. And as the fire department is trying to update their policy and procedure, this is in conflict with their updates. The policy and procedure manual of the fire department is not approved by council. But yet this one piece of ordinance is in there that they're trying to do. That's why we had tried to get it removed this evening.
Mr. President, just explanation of that when, next time. My thing with it is I didn't want to see the attendance thing go out of there. That's just where I stand with it. The reason being is we have a department that needs people, so we take the attendance feature away. Then so I mean, that's up to debate, obviously, through the committee, but that was my reasoning for not adopting that ordinance. I would like to see the attendance stay as part of that.
The policy and procedures of the fire department, though, are not part of council. But yet, this old ordinance, although it's only since 16, is in there, where the policy and procedure manual itself was never approved by council. It's not a council item.
You're not,
Mayor?
One of the things I noticed as David and the fire department and the fire chief have been looking to update that manual. They've been working a lot on it lately, including this morning. If you look up ordinance 6216, we couldn't find where there's anything in codified ordinances about that. And we determined the reason they didn't codify this ordinance is because it's changing the manual, which has never been approved by council. So that's why we was trying to to repeal that ordinance. It was an ordinance that modified something that had never been approved. So,
Just for clarity, because now I'm really confused, because the committee meeting that they had for this, why is the police, fire, and traffic committee involved in the policy and procedure manual if it's not implemented by the council?
well, I'm going to guess they still wanted council's input.
Yeah. Council's input into it, because the part of it that does apply, not to the policy and procedure, is anything that impacts compensation. So that's why the fire department brought it to the committee to let them know what they was working on to get input into it. But the policy and procedure manual itself is not a council item.
Can I ask another question? Why did the council approve the regular employees policy and procedures manual?
We did that for the first time last year. It had never been done before because there's so much of it deals with compensations and financials, insurance and so forth. So rather than breaking it out, we brought it before council, but before that, the policy and procedure manual of the city general had never come to council.
So I guess I'm confused on the fire department one then, because there was an ordinance 5916 that did state compensation, which obviously we would have the ability to do, but it also has, it's codified.
The compensation sides are, anything that is associated with funds has to be council approved.
Okay. I guess I'm just confused why it came to committee to begin with.
Can I, so the police department, their procedure and policy manual, we approve? Is that-
No.
No, just the
No.
city workers?
And it had never been done until last year. The police has their own policy and procedure manual. Brett and I have talked about it. It needs some updating too. But, and the fire department definitely did. It was over 30 years of old stuff in there. The big item that was in this one here was the 4-mile rule. And if you're limiting yourself to only people that live within 4 miles of the station, it makes it very tough to get people that can be a part of it.
And I'm willing to budge on that, but I don't want to see you take attendance away. I mean,
But that was never anything for council to vote on.
but it happened, so now we have to live.
No,
It happened on.
oh, you did have it in on the, yeah, and it still says 30, 30, 30 even in the new one. Because that's what was passed was 30, 30, 30.
You're putting us in a spot, that's why I feel like some more communication on this would have been a little bit better, and then just by reading on it on my own, and from what we had already approved for the laborers, I guess there's a disconnect there, because I'm sure if you asked everybody sitting at the table, we didn't realize that policy and procedure manual was through admin. So I did not know that.
I just find it hard that we're to pay them, it's our responsibility, but we have no say in the procedures, I think that's a conflict. Then maybe they need to find another pay source, or...
They do, well, they got 2 levies, and they got contracts.
Yeah, like I said, I don't have a problem removing it, but it wasn't communicated. It just wasn't communicated on my side. I know that you kind of had the look on your face, like why, but that's where I'm at with it. I don't know, I can't speak for anybody else.
Is there any objection bringing it back to the next council meeting?
My only question was, and I wrote it on the thing here, was why? And I think you've answered that question.
Ryan was asking for better explanation, and I'm just defending David here is all I'm doing.
I'm not trying to throw you under the bus,
I think this come about.
We need to know these things.
This come about very recently as they've been working to update that manual, as he has and Dave Channel, and they were trying to figure out where that rule was. And when they went looking for it, they couldn't find it other than in this ordinance. And then they try to find it. Just this morning, I was trying to find this ordinance in our codifieds, and it's not there. So that's why we brought it before council, thinking that all of this discussion we have now would be when council was considering it, which is where it should take place. But it didn't get that far tonight. That's why we're so confused, why you didn't even want to discuss it.
I said my piece.
Okay, so
I'll be quiet now.
Any other discussion?
all you have to do is adopt it to discuss it. You don't have to pass it, you don't have to vote for it, but you can at least discuss it then. That's when we would have answered all these questions instead of in new business. But
Well, I mean, I don't have a problem with you bringing it back. Obviously, you can't bring it back at whatever you had it listed as there, 6521, but.
So it would have had to be a new ordinance.
But
New number.
did not realize that. But lots of times too, we can, it's like we're in this mindset that some things we need to ask before the meeting, some things we need to ask during the meeting. So I normally ask things during the meeting because it's public record. Then I can say, hey, I asked. That's all I can do. I think that's why I'm sitting here, so to ask you these questions. But I did not know that. I was not aware that we wouldn't vote on that, but it's enlightening. So if that's the way it is, and that needs to be removed so you can carry on. I just did not realize that was an admin policy and procedure manual, so.
So my question would be, is there something we don't know that all the council knows that they wouldn't even consider this tonight? Because if so, we need to know it too.
And it's very strange for 7 people and nobody say anything.
Nobody would have voted to adopt it.
I just
if there's
wrote on mine why, and that was the end of that story.
Okay, just
Maybe
curious.
somebody
Something
knows
we need to
something
know
I
that
don't.
we don't know.
Evidently something I don't know.
Is there anything else to be brought before council, new business? Is there a motion for executive session?
I move we go into executive session to discuss discipline matters and contract, and that everyone at this table be in that meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Foster.
Yes.
Call.
Yeah.
Colby.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Newkirk. Biggs.
Yes.
Bop.
We'll move into executive session at 8:15. I caution you, just give us a few seconds here to get the mics turned off. get a calendar here to update him, so I do have a question once we're back on. Question I have is there was some discussion about a meeting next week at 6:30. Is that budget or what is it that we're looking at? I think we only have a 5:30 meeting, correct? And at this time? Is there
Planning.
Plan.
We're going to talk about updating the zoning map. The zoning map has a lot of inaccuracies to it.
Okay.
So that's why I've asked Pete to call that meeting together.
So at 6:30, then we'll be planning, 5:30, then we'll be service.
Correct.
What is 6:30? The planning committee? Or our council committee?
The planning.
Planning commission.
Planning commission.
I thought I was chairman of that, and I didn't even know about it.
We just talked about it tonight.
Okay. That's at 6:30?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the 15th, so it's 5:30 and 6:30 next week, next Monday.
Mr. Schwackhammer, at the next meeting, do you think you're gonna have something, a preliminary budget for us to look at by any chance?
At the next council meeting,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to say yes, and I know I'm putting Red under fire, but I would say the intention is to do like we did before. We'll give you both a line item, but when we bring it to pass, we'll be at the object level. And I assume, Deb, that we will probably want council to call maybe a budget meeting sometime between maybe the first and second meeting to give everybody a chance to look at it. And that way we can make any adjustments that we feel we may need to make prior to passage.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn. So Mr. Bott, second by Mr. Peters. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Now you can go back to work.
You